The First World War brought death and destruction to the whole European continent. The Russians fell to the Germans after mass protests demanding for the end of the war. The Germans then shattered as the French and UK fell to revolutions as their own, and a massive power vacuum was left across the continent. The demise of the Habsburg domain across Central Europe and the Balkans led to the creation of many new nations, one of which being Czechoslovakia. In 1922, the young republic has been present for a mere 4 years, and now in the present day, the nation is led by Milan Stefanik as they await for the return of the Czech Legion from Russia. Now, following the war, Czechoslovakia and Austria were never able to reach a compromise regarding the German-speaking Sudetenland, and while the Czechs were able to secure the north, the Austrians did still have positions in the south, leading to many border conflicts. And so, Milan would have to eject the remaining Austrian forces before anything else. Conflicts were brief but violent, with neither side being able to properly mount an offensive to expel the other. Milan, however, knew this, and so he dug in and prepared for the Austrian assaults. By digging in and repelling the Austrian offensives, Milan could retain his army's strength, and after some time the Czechs could mount a proper counteroffensive and officially drive the Austrians out of southern Sudetenland, firmly establishing the region as Czech. Things now seemed up for the nation, with Milan steadily guiding the nation towards democracy. The Austrians now finally repelled from ever being a threat again. Czechoslovakia was looking forward to a bright future. Until they weren't. At a rally, Milan was sadly assassinated, leading to mass instability and riots all across the nation. And to add further fuel to the flames, the Hungarian Soviet Republic to the south had declared war on all of its neighbors, including Czechoslovakia. However, given they were encircled, their lacking industry and a competent army, the Hungarians were not able to keep up and were quickly squashed by the Czech, Austrian, and Romanian coalition. With Hungary now destroyed and partitioned, Czechoslovakia could finally look inwards and try to fix the rapidly deteriorating situation. Thankfully, the rapid victory in Hungary did bring the public together a little, buying the government some time, but things were not sunshine and rainbows. They needed to elect a new leader, and they knew just who. Radola Gajda, the leader of the Czech Legion, had recently returned from their expedition in Russia. He was seen as a hero to the people. He and his legion were able to buy Kolchak and the White Forces time, and although they did not achieve total victory against the Bolsheviks, the people did not care, for he proved his military prowess and was able to bring the many sons and husbands who embarked with him back home. His great popularity would make him the only viable candidate to be promoted to the position of the lead military commander, which Milan previously occupied. This promotion would further legitimize him in the public's eye even more. And a few weeks later, with the question of leadership becoming more and more taxing, he would become the supreme commander of Czechoslovakia, and without hesitation, he would begin implementing his reforms into society. You see, Gajda wasn't just your regular old despot. While he was certainly one for dictatorships, he held a far more righteous cause close to his heart. You see, for he held a great sentiment for his people. Not only to his Czech lineage, though, for he held a great love for all of his Slavic brothers and sisters, and it tore him apart to see the division across such a great people. He wanted to, he needed to fix this division, and he knew just how. By unifying all Slavs under one banner, his banner. He knew that the prospect would be hard, but possible. Given the power vacuum across all Slavic lands, the goal was certainly achievable. But only now was the opportunity possible. He knew that now was the time. But the nation was not ready for his vision yet, and so the Czech Legion would begin rapidly reforming the nation. They would militarize Czechoslovak society, integrate women into the workforce, create a new Slavic language, and most importantly, deport the minorities. And eventually, after these short yet effective reforms were undergone, Czechoslovakia was ready to begin her great crusade across all of Slavdom. Now, to our west, the once shattered German states were quickly unifying under the deranged Himmler. He and his evil forces were quickly pushing east, slowly destroying the Spartacus Bund. And Gajda knew the necessity of needing to quell the German menace before they could become a real problem. And so, he would invade the Polish garrison in Silesia to seize vital German resources, industries, and to block them out of continuing down their focus. But we don't talk about that last reason. And while Himmler was certainly upset, he couldn't do anything in the meanwhile as he was still distracted with the Spartacists. Meanwhile, further east, the RSFSR under the newly appointed Stalin was beginning its reconquest of the shattered Russia. Gajda knew he had to be fast to conquer as much land as he could before Stalin could get to it, and so he set his sights on our new neighbor, the Polish-Belarusian military district under Tukhachevsky. With war quickly declared, the legions would storm across the border, taking ungarrisoned land and encircling the land that was. It was clear that Tukhachevsky would not be able to resist Gajda. However, he would still put up a fierce fight. The initial stages of the war would be focused on pushing up towards Danzig and the Baltic Sea, before then turning east and taking the major cities. And this plan would be followed to a T. Danzig would fall, followed by Warsaw or Tukhachevsk soon after. And from then on, Tukhachevsky could not provide a proper defense, and so we marched into Minsk, executing Tukhachevsky and ending the military district. We then established multiple puppets to garrison the land in the former military district in order to make integration easier, and we then turned our eyes to the pesky Hungarians. The Hungarians fell without a fight. The first war they had with us crippled them, so us taking over was really more of a blessing than a curse, if anything. And from there, we then reached out to our like-minded neighbors to the south, the Yugoslavians. We outstretched a graceful hand to them, offering economic promise, peace in their lands, membership in our sphere, and yet despite all of that, they refused and spat in our faces, declaring war on us. And so, we now had to march down into the Balkans. Now, on paper, the Yugoslavs were quite scary. They had a similarly sized army to us, and the Danube was an intimidating boundary to cross. But when it came to fighting, the Yugoslavs really disintegrated against us. While their numbers did enable for them to last longer against us compared to our previous foes, they would still fall to us in the end after grinding down their forces enough. With our southern goals temporarily achieved, we then took some time to officially annex our Polish and Galician puppets and finally, officially, establish Zapadoslavia, completing our prelude to the unified Slavic state. With that, we then looked north to the Western Volunteer Army in the Baltics. They too fell quite fast due to their small size, but upon closer inspection, we noticed that they actually annexed a warlord in the Caucasus, and we were unable to reach them unless we marched through Stalin. And so, Gajda stopped the conquest for now to build up the army in preparation for the inevitable war against the strongest warlord, the RSFSR. And after some time preparing, we declared war on the dirty communists. Stalin was a formidable foe. However, we picked the perfect time to attack as they were distracted in Central Asia. So, we took the opportunity we were presented with and pushed forth into Russia.
Už vieme zlojenčinný základ, rota priamo hľad. Cibríme dokonalý súlad, v jednom šíku stáť. Deň zo dňa lepší a hlavne smelší, poznáme bojový cvičení slast. Dnes vieme držať krok a šľapať, zajtra brániť vlast. Vojak nikdy nemá to ľahké, najmä prvých 700 dní. Včera bosky rozdával sladké, dnes ho čaká výcvik pechotný. Krátke spávanie, rýchle vstávanie, krvených 100 striel. Stráže, útoky, nástup, prískoky a vždy tráfať cieľ. Voja preto cvičí dnes ťažko, preto z čela padá mu znoj, aby mohol v pravý čas ľahko zvíťaziť, keď príde boj. Zvíťaziť, keď príde boj.
And with the fall of and direct annexation of the Bolshevik and Cossack lands, we could finally make our grand return to Siberia. Just after a quick little special military operation into Central Asia, of course. With Central Asia now conquered, we had also reached out to our old friend Kolchak. You see, the Czech Legion had fought alongside Kolchak's forces during the Russian Civil War, and so Kolchak, seeing nothing to fear, had willingly joined our sphere, making our further push east even easier. But before we could do so, we had to build up supply, so we temporarily refocused on Eastern Europe, more specifically Romania in the meantime. Our Slavic legions blitzed through the Romanian lines, snaking and circling, eradicating the state until Bucharest had fallen, and with it the rest of Romania, where we then partitioned and puppeted the nation, with Romania now having joined our benevolent sphere. We then finally took the time to mop up the east, which also did not take that long. The government in Vladivostok quickly capitulated, and while the Yakutsk government did take a little bit longer, they too fell, and we could finally look away from Russia. From there, we once again looked back at the Balkans to finally integrate the Bulgarians, and they were swiftly annexed into the nation. From there, no Slavic nations were left outside of our own, and so Gajda finally deemed the unification of the Slavs to be true. We then annexed, through the consul, all of our puppets, and finally Zapadoslavia was no more. Rather, the United Slavic Empire had taken its place on the world stage. Although, One thing to note, I didn't receive any cores on my newly annexed land, but hey, it's whatever. From there, we then looked back west to our age-old enemy, Himmler, who interestingly didn't attack us for Silesia, but hey, not complaining. Gajda quickly declared war to finally liberate the people from this tyrannical regime, and it's hard to say that the Germans really put up much of a fight. Himmler was incapable of providing a true defense against us as we pushed west, taking Berlin, Hamburg, Bavaria, every little bit that we could, until we had finally reached the Rhine and put an end to his illegitimate state. Then we looked south to the Balkans for one final objective, to retake Tsarigrad. First we attacked Greece. Obviously the Greeks couldn't stand against Gajda's great empire and they folded quickly. From there we turned to Turkey and marched it. Turkey fell very fast as well, and we directly annexed the once Constantinople, now Tsarigrad. And with that, Gajda had achieved his goal, to unify all of Slavdom, and a little bit more. Now in the modern day, the great superstate is still thriving. Although following the death of Gajda in 1960, the state did see some rough times with ethnic conflicts in formerly Russian, German, and Yugoslav lands, as well as some rocky relations with the Turkish following the annexation of Tsarigrad, the French over spheres of influence across the world, and China over Mongolia. Although, through all of this, the state was able to recover and make a slow shift towards democracy and become more tolerable of all the people residing within it. And with that, the story of Gajda's Slavic wild ride and collapsing world ends. I hope you all enjoyed the video. I hope you still enjoy the format. It's okay, in my opinion. But anyways, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one. Have a good one. See ya.